And today we're going to continue with our lesson planning, part of the check test and part 3 standard, part 3 series. Today's one section on lesson planning is specifically on was the practice area suitable? Now, when I was an instructor, I set out my training ground. I was based in Exeter at the time, and nearly all my learners went to the very, very same spot to do their moving off and stopping, and certainly their early lessons are very, very same spot. I mean, literally, when I say spot, I'm pretty sure that maybe several hundreds, could even be 1,000 times, my front and back wheel stopped in exactly the same spot, and I would take my learner to a place, and I knew there was a drain there, and it put on the car just stopped just the other side of the drain, because for me, I knew that for me, to my right hand side there was a driveway, etc., and it worked out later on quite well for me when I was talking about blind spots and things there. So and I had my training ground, my locations were set around, etc., a bit like a teacher, a classroom teacher. We talk about our resources, and resources could be our blackboard or our whiteboard, and in the car we've got various resources, etc., and the same thing there. The lesson area that we use is a resource we can use. And hopefully, we can do what we set our routes from intermediate, novice routes, intermediate, and then more advanced routes, etc., And we really should be planning those routes there. Now, obviously, within the confines of some pupils, they may live too far away. Generally, 99% of my pupils all took 2-hour lessons, so it wasn't generally a massive problem. I would drive them there the first time. The drive would contain questions, and they would be asked to do things, talk about driving, or they would be, basically telling me whether roads were clear, etc., So we'd fill the lesson with the lesson, etc. I hear quite often, sometimes on this subject, pupils complain that they didn't do all the driving during the lesson, etc. But I think this is called because people don't fill the lesson with the lesson and talk about other things. But generally, there I would plan my routes, etc., and then they would move off to their own. So we need to make sure that you've planned routes, planned areas for training that are suitable, that you can move them up. So you can move up so they're now sufficiently challenging. So obviously, let's take the moving off and stopping. We've very, very quiet road. I don't want any traffic around as possible. You need to have enough distance to do 2 or 3 move-offs and stops, etc., and to get them going, etc. So, I mean, that's fairly obvious now, hopefully. And then, of course, we need to progress it. So maybe we then got a corner so they can just drive round with a bit of help, etc. It needs to be long enough to be able to get them to look far into the road. So we need to plan the routes, etc. I say I did that with all my lessons, and every lesson had a set route and set plan, etc. I mean, once they got to the advanced stages, it was much more flexible. But again, every one of my pupils at some point would have driven to Exmouth. They would have driven to Butley Salterton, and down the dual carriageway towards Newton Abbot, etc. And later on, when doing the Pass Plus further out, Morton Hampstead and other ways, etc. I had my very set routes. A lot of driving instructors don't tend to do this. They just tend to pick off from where the pupil lives and start them from there, and there is no structure to it. The danger of this is you get caught out, or you haven't pre-planned it, so you're trying to move them on to the next bit, etc. And maybe it's not quite as good as you want. Maybe it's you may be looking for an area that is really quiet, but it's not as quiet as you'd like. But hey, it's near the pupil's house, so we do this, and I just think that's very often can be wrong. We've got to try and set our routes a bit like a classroom, etc. A school teacher will have certain books, certain things, and they're going to prepare this lesson today. So we have this video, and we have this thing, and I'll write this on the board, and I will do this, etc. And we need to be the same. Lesson planning, remember this section is, so plan the lesson. So plan all your routes, plan all your areas, and obviously plan escape routes as well. Escape routes brings me on to something as well. When you do your Part 3 test, or when you do a standards check, or maybe you've got a learner who really only wants to do a 1 hour lesson, etc., they need to be back home by a certain time. Your route then is not, you're going to be off out of your comfort zone, because unless your route is very near the test centre, very often you'll find that where you need to do the lesson today for the Part 3 test or standards check is based at the test centre, and you don't normally set off all your driving lessons at the test centre. What I found is people think about this and they give a very little thought to it. Let's say you're going to be doing a manoeuvre. I'm going to teach my learner a manoeuvre for my test, etc. And in your head you think, I know there's an area about a mile away from this test centre, and we'll go there and then we'll do it. And in a sense, you've given a bit of lip service to the fact that it's this area and we're going to go there. Okay, and the area may or may not be suitable. It might be a bit of a compromise. We don't really want too much of a compromise though, but we have to bear this in mind with that. Where this all goes wrong is not actually on the area, but the trip to the area. What instructors fail or forget is possibly the roundabout on the way and the traffic lights or the meeting traffic situation or all the other situations before they get there. So the lesson opens itself up to many potential problems. Now, and when these problems come, of course, you will be expected to deal with them. Now, if it's a subject that the learner has not done, let's say it's a roundabout, then maybe you can say, right, okay, don't worry about the roundabout. I will take control of the roundabout on the way and I will guide you through. Okay, because you haven't done roundabouts, Sam, so I am 100% responsible for the roundabout. And this often doesn't happen because often the instructor has not planned it, they forget about the roundabout and they just let the pupil go for it. Or maybe the pupil has done a few roundabouts because instructors aren't necessarily planning and it can go quite wrong. But maybe they are, maybe they've done, let's say, meeting traffic, etc., and they're on the way to the area for doing the turn road and they make a mess of the meeting traffic. You need to be thinking, when you're looking at the route and planning it, you need to be thinking, well, what if this road here, what could go wrong on this road? And you should be identifying, well, maybe there's a meet traffic situation. Okay, if there is a meet traffic problem, what would I do? I know, maybe if I went left and come back round on the road, I could redo it. Yeah, okay. So you need to be planning each thing. There's a roundabout, right? Okay, what if they go wrong on the roundabout? What could we do? Right here, left here, and bring them back. So you plan it all, and you on the route as you plan it before you're checked it, long before you're there, you're thinking what could go wrong, what can go wrong, and what would I do if it does go wrong. And then you plan, and then you can be intuitive. You can just react to it very quickly, and that's there. And it's just planning all the way through, and then suddenly when these things happen, I know we're there, and you deal with it. The old DT1 used to say, a quick trip round the block when a problem happens, a quick trip round the block, and you can resolve the situation. And again, seal the situation, and then back on course for the manoeuvre. And again, don't worry, if you don't get back on course the manoeuvre, and then that's the next session we're going to look at, etc. But you need to plan that route. Make sure anything that could possibly go wrong, what would happen, etc., and plan it there and plan it back. Think about your timings. Go out and do it. Go out yourself, drive it, check it's suitable. Even the day before, or even the morning before on that, go and make sure that there's no roadworks or any problems or any cars obstruction, etc. I've seen this happen. An instructor's gone out to an area and found roadworks on the road, and where they were planning to do the move, it's gone. Now you could imagine you've got a Part 3 test, a standards check, and suddenly you're thrown by the fact that there are roadwork, you cannot do it. Suddenly you're trying to think on the hoof, where can I go? What can I do? And you do not need to put yourself and your pupil under that much pressure on the day. So plan the route carefully, make sure it's suitable, go there before, even on the morning before, an hour before, make sure it's suitable, make sure there's no problems, and check on all the way, what could possibly go wrong. Okay, plan that individual lesson. Okay, thank you very much now. Bye for now. Happy teaching.